Did it make me feel uplifting at first looking at it? I wanted it to feel gentle and that it draws you in. And so those are some of the things that I wanted to see, and that it spatially blends in well. And as somebody said, doesn't need a lot of explanation down the road, that you can go in there and get the feeling of what went on. So for me, I'm going to vote based on that. I was just going to put it on my sheet. I didn't know if we're going to vote out loud now, but those were the criteria I was going to use to do my voting.
Okay, good, thank you. Jennifer, you look at me, are you looking to say something?
I think that if you want to incorporate an art piece along with a landscape design, we can do that. You know, like you mentioned, Carmen's, you know, sculpture along with one of the other larger designs for the park or as a sign or whatever, that's not a problem. So I think you can continue to discuss. I don't want to stop the discussion, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that, you know, if that's what you want to do, we can do that. I would encourage you to pick one on the Grady Park, pick one of the architects as the main design, and then if you wanted to supplement that, like I said, with a sculpture or a piece from something else, we can do that. But it would be probably easiest from a design perspective to have kind of one lead architect in terms of the park. So feel free to continue discussing, and then when you're ready to vote, we'll be happy to tally it up. And if you want to add comments, you know, specific things, we'll make note of that and respond back to the group.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to have our notes if we are going to have a note on this? Okay, perfect. Is there any further? Yes.
I just kind of wanted to bring it back to what multiple people have said here. It sounds like a lot of people really like the Carmen de la Paz sculpture, but maybe not for Main Street, and would rather have that on incorporated in some way in Grady Park. And I guess I maybe am asking this of Jennifer here. When we're voting for the Main Street design, then would you recommend that we vote for what we want to actually see on Main Street, with the idea that Carmen de la Paz might still be incorporated into the Grady Park design?
Yeah, I think that would be best. And then on the Grady Park sheet, whichever main architect you choose, then I think just make a note that you'd also like to see Carmen incorporated in that, if that's how you feel. I think that would be best.
Okay. Jennifer, is your thought process that you're going to have the sheets and then tally things up?
Yes, that's what we were thinking. And
I
I'm
agree.
happy to do one at a time, or we can do both at the same time, however you want to proceed.
Okay. Then basically, let's just hold the discussion for fundraising. And I think I'd like to do the vote right now and give it to them, and then we'll go into the fundraising. Okay? And, you know, it's funny. As an insurance person, which I am, don't be afraid to be wordy. Put a lot of words in there so that they really get the idea of what we want to say. Yes?
Do we just need the one vote for the
actual...
the actual designer that we're going to work with? Because I didn't hear anybody say they wanted a Thrive Greedy Park and a Strang Main Street. It sounded to me like whichever designer we picked, they would do both with potentially the addition of Carmen's sculpture. Is that kind of what I heard?
I think that you should vote for both, because I heard something a little bit different.
Okay,
So
we can do that.
yeah. And if you rather vote for Main Street first and kind of get an idea, or Grady first, and then kind of understand where that landed before you vote for the other one, we can do that too.
Any other comments? Because I'm going to spend a couple minutes and start writing.
Can I make one comment?
Go ahead.
Can I just share an idea I had? When I was going through all the proposals and I started picking elements from one design and elements from another, I did develop a concept in my head that I just want to share, just for thought. As I said earlier, I really liked the metal lanterns from Strang. I did not like many of their other design elements, and I did not like their typeface on the major monolithic piece that would appear in Grady Park. But the concept I started automatically developing in my head was a series of those lanterns downtown that would direct people to the park. And then when you got to the park, I really loved the Psyche landscape design. And the concept I came up with was not to have a main memorial like Carmen's heart, hands with a heart, but rather to have 6 more lanterns, maybe they're a little bit larger, worked into this landscape theme. And their design also had some low retaining walls. And I thought it might be interesting or appropriate to have the story perhaps of what happened, a list of all the people who were involved, all the people who came to the service of the people who were injured, an acknowledgement and a story written on that wall, but in a contemplation area with benches, but not necessarily one main memorial, that it would be really 6 memorials that you could meander through, and the 6 people who lost their lives would really be the focus of the design. So that was, I just wanted to share that because in my mind I came up with a really beautiful design and thoughtful and that would make people roam through and stop here and stop there and read through what was written and appreciate the landscaping. Just wanted to share that.
How do we feel about this being like a straw poll and not an actual vote of the committee? And then after you see the results, react to the results and then have an actual motion that's the actual action of the committee? How do you feel about that?
Well, the actual thought process is that we would vote on this and that staff would see exactly what our thoughts are. And then this is
Well,
going to
they
be
would still see
proposed.
what our thoughts are if we gave them a poll. I would like to know what the result is before we make a decision. Like, as we drift toward a consensus, I don't want us to decide on this vote.
So your thought process is what?
That we would write down all these things, we'd put in what our number 1 is, let them see what our comments are, of course, they'd keep that regardless, and then to say the results of this poll, and then find out if anybody has any thoughts about that. If you're drifting toward a consensus, or are we drifting toward lack of consensus? Does that make any sense?
No,
Can I make
catch-
maybe a suggestion off of what Alderperson Molson is saying? I think that, maybe we only need one true vote, that this is our vote, but maybe just our reactions after we get the vote to just make sure that if there are any additional comments based on what is chosen, that everybody still gets, kind of one final comment, not that they're required, but if anybody has additional comments after the vote has been taken, that we incorporate in, especially as we're talking about tweaking these designs and finalizing things with staff. So perhaps after the vote, we can just have one more kind of go around the room. If you don't want to say anything, you don't have to, but that way everybody feels like they've been heard.
Okay, but that way, the committee, if we use this as a vote, the committee has officially taken an action. And then reacting to the action does what? If we just take a poll, then you haven't actually taken an action yet, but you could just see the results, you react to the results, and if we have, after you've had the reaction, then we could either vote again or just have a motion to agree on what the result is.
I'm trying to process this in my head too.
I'm trying to take an unofficial action first before we take an official action.
I think I kind of got an unofficial action already in my mind as I listen to people, but
Well, I don't know what they've all decided.
no.
If you don't want to do that, we'll just, that's okay with me too.
I think I'd like to take the vote, especially on the three, and have staff look at that. And then my thought process is the other five, incorporate that into whichever architectural design is here. I think that's the primary one. What do people feel? Yes, no? Heads going which way? So far? Okay? Okay.
I wasn't.
Hang on.
You weren't in on
I wasn't clear on.
No, I was just trying to get your attention. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I think Alderperson Molson's thoughts are, is this being done by consensus or is this being done by majority? And, I think her desire to see, are we all moving in the same direction or are we so far apart on this that it's four people that are making a decision? Am I reading the room right on that? And so by making it a poll, we get a sense of if we're unified in what we're thinking or if we're really far apart on what we're thinking. And I would not be opposed to doing that at all. I think it'd be nice to say, we have the vast majority of people on the same page and we're good with moving forward with a vote versus, boy, this is really, we're really far apart. And I think that's kind of the point of order, we need to decide on. Are we gonna go one way or the other with that?
Yeah, I would agree on that as well. I think that it would be a good idea for us to, and I think it's a good idea to separate them out, to maybe vote on the park, but yeah, not to necessarily make it an official unless that's what people want. It's totally up to everyone here, but that way, yeah, if we are really far apart on this, then maybe we can come back and figure out why and where the elements are missing and what we need to figure out there. I did get a sense that we were kind of all on the same page, but maybe we aren't, and we're making that assumption just based on the comments, because it's easy when you're in a room full of people to sound like you're agreeable, even if you don't necessarily agree. So I think that would be a better way to do it. Hopefully, everybody was saying exactly what they feel, and we are on the same page, and then we just say, okay, let's make a motion to accept the vote as is. And that's, hopefully best case scenario, but that isn't necessarily what's going to happen. And I agree, we don't want it to come down to just a few people. This should be something where the entire community, and those are the people we're representing, are coming together and agreeing on one design, or one design in each place, I should say.
Okay, I'll defer to your comments. It's Elizabeth, would you like to begin?
So we're not using these voting sheets, we're gonna say what,
Well,
If I can suggest, why don't you fill out the voting sheets and we'll collect them and we'll compile the thoughts and then we'll send it back up for discussion
That
and
I would
kind of
prefer
to
that.
finalize that.
Okay.
I prefer that.
Yeah.
just the one with the three?
I'm going to go with just the three major architects right now, because these other five may blend in depending on how people feel.
Sure, why don't let's just start with one and get that one settled and then
Perfect.
we'll move on to the other one. So we'll start with Grady Park.
Are you the collection person? Thank you.
Okay, good point.
Mr. Curry, once all the papers are collected,
I beg your pardon?
once the papers are collected, could my mother have a moment to speak, please?
Certainly. Or is everything in? Would you like to come up, ma'am? Just state your name, community that you live in.
Katie Pudlener of Waukesha. Just one question that I have is, for transparency purposes, what did the community say? What are those tallies from the community on the survey? You guys may have them on your paperwork, but the rest of the world doesn't have that information. So was the vote for the downtown one 100% to Carmen or 95% to Carmen? And are you taking that into consideration as well? And what did they say about Greedy Park?
Okay, thank you. I beg your pardon? I'm sorry.
She's asking, do you want to respond to the comment?
Oh. Thank you. Now I can. Thank you. For the smaller units on the main street itself, 26% for Carmen de la Paz, 8% for Mr. Taylor, for Strang 22%, Thrive Architects 35%, Saki Design 9%. That's the smaller ones. For the architects, Thrive,
So just to clarify, that was for the Main Street Memorial?
yes, the smaller Main Street Memorial, yes, sorry. For the 3 architects that are proposed, Thrive at 49%, and that represented 971 submissions. Saki Design at 21%, and that was 423 opinions. Strang Incorporated was 30% at 596 responses. Now, were those responses individual, or did a person vote for 2 or 3 at a time?
Those aren't, those, you should just be using the percentages. So those numbers are based on the online survey, they were assigning points, like it was
Thank you.
10 points and they assigned. So that's the points that that architect received.
So Thrive at 49%, Saki at 21%, Strang 30%. Does that help you? Okay.
Just you guys take that into consideration that the community has
If you have 30 votes, it's too many. For Thrive? Community, that was 49%.
So maybe we could start with, because there was some discussion about incorporating Carmen's heart sculpture into the park somewhere. Maybe if we could get consensus on whether or not you want to do that, and then go from there in terms of trying to choose. Do you want to have a discussion about, you know, it seems like Thrive has the most votes. Do you feel comfortable with that, or do you want to re-examine Thrive and Psyche and have a discussion about both of those options?
Okay. Is there any comments about this right now? And first of all, I'd like to start by indicating that I'd like to see Carmen's concept, but I'd like to see it coming into the park with inside of the hands of the heart, a backdrop of 6 lights, 6 blue lights inside of that dark blue area. And I'd like to see that not so small. I think it should be large enough that it causes people to want to see what this is about. So I'm saying a minimum of 5 foot. Now, the fire person may disagree with that because of its size, but I think that that's just what I'd like to see.
My concern about the size of the monument was relative to its placement on Main Street. Yep.
I agree. Thank you.
I'm supportive of that thought. We'd have to be cautious about whether or not people are going to climb on it.
I like the idea of incorporating Carmen's sculpture as a, perhaps entryway to the park. I think that that's one of those things where we maybe need to incorporate some other ideas from staff to make sure that it's appropriately sized and appropriately placed. But I think that would be a really great idea. In seeing the results, I think that one of the things also in reading a lot of the comments that came from the community is that people want a lot of nature, plants, trees, things like that incorporated into the design. And I think that that is one thing where Thrive felt like maybe it was lacking a little bit. And so what I'm maybe reading into, and I don't want to put words into people's mouths, so please comment further if you disagree with me especially. But I think that overall, people like the design from Thrive, but maybe want to see more nature incorporated into that. And I don't know if maybe that is the consensus of this commission, that we can pass that on to staff in tweaking those designs to make Thrive our main architect, but incorporate more nature, and maybe even consult with Psyche on some of the ideas that they had in terms of incorporating native plants and trees into the design.
Lori Locken, one of the things that I think we have to be very mindful of is with Carmen's design, it is excellent, but how is that going to blend in with Thrive's design? I think we have to be very mindful of that we're not keeping those two separate unless that's what the community and the committee or the commission feels. But my personal opinion would be that there has to somehow follow some kind of a theme to establish some continuity. Thank you.
I feel like because they're both hearts, that's a connection right there immediately. But I could agree with you where as far as like color-wise, like there would need to be a little bit more connection. I do feel that I love Carmen's piece, and I would like to see it incorporated wherever we put it. Again, I don't think it belonged on Main Street, but I would like to see it in Greedy Park, and I think it does tie in with Thrive really nicely. I personally like the Thrive design, but I too felt it was very much lacking any bit of nature, which is why I said that we need to partner with Psyche as well, especially when it came to his idea on the wind flute and Garden of Souls. We definitely would like to confer with him, or however we can, to just incorporate more of a natural element if we are going with Thrive.
I guess, can I just ask a question? For the people that voted for the Thrive, is it the heart structure itself? Because if it's that you're most attracted to, if it's the heart structure but the landscaping pieces aren't working, then maybe yes, we could combine the two, one to do the landscape plan and one to do the structure, if that's what people are thinking. So I'm just wondering if that's what your concern is. Like you just said, you like maybe the structure, the heart structure, but you're missing the landscaping piece.
Yeah, I like the heart structure, and I like that it has like the 6 birch trees and that they are kind of separated. So that way for us families that did lose somebody, we have somewhere kind of separate away from people to grieve. So I do really like that element of it, but yeah, it's just missing more nature pieces. I also liked that it was obviously like recessed a little lower. but yeah, it just needs more nature. I liked everything else. The hearts and the 6 separate areas are my main things in Thrive that I love.
Jennifer, I'm in favor of Thrive, and I like the way that they structured it, especially with the continuity of the 6 different ribbons flowing into the heart. So I'm saying that I like Thrive all the way through.
Well, I'm just going to talk. I wanted you to recognize me, but, okay. In talking with Thrive, I think they made it very clear that they were willing to add in anything that the commission wanted. So if we want the landscaping different, I think that they would do that.
I'm wondering if now that we know the results of the poll, if we could do a consensus vote to say, can we live with Thrive knowing the results of the poll? And that way we can kind of see where we're at with that. I make a motion, we take a consensus vote to see if we are all okay with Thrive as the architect.
Second.
We just did.
Thank you.
Sir, I think that motion and the vote you just took is the official action.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Jennifer, is there anything else that you're looking toward?
Is there consensus also about having Carmen's piece in the park? Just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
I make a motion to include Carmen de la Paz in Grady Park.
I second that motion.
Where's the second? Right here? Okay, motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Motion carried.
Okay.
Do we
thank
need
you.
to decide on the Main Street one, huh?
Yep, go ahead and fill out Main Street and then we'll collect those.
Only one, right? Okay. Is everybody in but me? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so we had 10 for Thrive, 1 for Carmen, 1 for Strang, and 1 no opinion. So I think Thrive is really 10 for Thrive, 1 for Carmen, and one no opinion. No opinion, no answer, no vote.
Can I just make a comment real quick on that? Given that we just had a consensus vote to include Carmen in the park design, I think that from a community perspective, I would hope that the community would not be upset with us for not including that on Main Street because we're including it elsewhere. So I think that's maybe something to consider if we are going for a consensus vote on this one as well. And with that, I will make the motion for a consensus vote on going forward with Thrive for the Main Street design.
I second.
Wait, let's ask if there's any discussion.
My arms like that one, you know. Okay, I'm here.
Since
Sure.
your mic wasn't working.
The poll?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
the last vote on Thrive.
Yeah, the poll for Thrive was 35%. Carmen at 26%. Strang at 22%. Saki Design, 9%. Richard Taylor, 8%
And the committee just voted in favor of Thrive.
of Thrive.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion on fundraising and memorials. Jennifer, do you have anything that's come, Rebecca, do you have anything that's come in?
So we just wanted to just briefly talk about this tonight. Obviously, the main purpose of tonight was to vote on picking designs, which you have done. So now, just in terms of the commission, sort of the next focus for all of you will be fundraising. That's obviously a big piece of this in that we will be looking to raise the funds for both of these designs, for the Main Street and the Grady Park design. We do have a fund out there, so I just want to repeat that again. There is a fund already created through the Waukesha County Community Foundation. There is a fund for the memorials, so anyone who is looking to donate to the memorials can donate right now. The link is out there, and I'm happy to provide it to all of you again. I had last checked with them. Now it's been a little over a week, so we have around $9,800 in that account right now. So there's been a few donations, but obviously we'll be looking to raise a lot more. Now we haven't focused on that too much because, again, our main focus has been on kind of choosing a design. And I think once we're able to put more images out of the design and people know what they're contributing towards, that makes a difference. So at the next meeting, one of the things we will be asking you to discuss will be sort of, are there other pieces or specific pieces of the memorial that you want people to fundraise for? So, or things you want to do for fundraisers. So, it could be shirts, it could be, something like a plaque or something that will be at the memorial. Are there specific things that people can be contributing towards so that they are a part of the memorial. So that will be what we'll be discussing at the next meeting. So I'd encourage you just to be thinking about ideas. If there's certain fundraising things you want to do or certain pieces or aspects of the memorial you think that people can be a part of or can fundraise specifically for, that will sort of help our fundraising efforts. So we will look to meet probably again in a month just to kind of work on the fundraising. But then we did want to let you know that sort of going forward, we'll see how the fundraising is going, but going forward then we probably won't be meeting every month, continually. We'll hope to kind of get a fundraising plan going and be working on the fundraising and then kind of decide when we need to meet again, maybe in the new year as we're kind of kicking off the next phase of this project. The other thing I did just want to mention, this isn't specifically on fundraise necessarily, but we are, as I know we're all aware, we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of the parade tragedy. So the city is planning on doing a ceremony on Monday, November 21st, so the actual anniversary. So you will all be invited to that. We are still finalizing some of the details on that, so I will certainly send that out to you as soon as it's finalized, because obviously we would invite all of you to be a part of it. And in terms of fundraising, not to tie it together, but it would be probably helpful to have something sort of in place in terms of what we're sort of doing specifically for fundraising. That would maybe be a good tie-in sort of with the 1-year anniversary. So just something to keep in mind. But otherwise, you'll be hearing from me an email again, another doodle poll to plan our next meeting to discuss fundraising. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Non-fundraising question, but a next step question. So we've identified Thrive and Carmen, but what will the process be to refine the design with Thrive?
So we've got an internal staff group consisting of parks, engineering, and planning, and we'll be working with Thrive, and we're going to take all of your comments that we've collected here, especially the ones about the additional landscaping, and so we'll be meeting with them and trying to finalize that design over the next couple months. It'll probably take a while to do that, so that's going to be the next step.
Will that come back to the commission to discuss?
Our plan was to finalize the design, taking all of the comments that you made, and obviously Thrive will probably be reaching out to you individually as well to just discuss some of the details. But our plan was not to bring it back to the commission, to send it to the Parks Board next for their approval, because they really haven't weighed in on this yet, and then ultimately to the Plan Commission, who would be the final approval on it.
Okay, one other thing too, Jen. There has been a lighting design consultant that has contacted me saying that he will provide design if wanted. He will also provide 100% of all of the existing costs and into perpetuation costs.
Yes, we've been collecting that information. So if somebody does reach out to you and say they want to donate materials or labor, if you can direct that to Rebecca. We've been keeping a list of those companies that want to do those kind of in-kind donations. And so once we have the final design, we can talk with them on how that would work.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes.
I just have a quick one, real quick. When it comes to the fundraising, now that we know that it's Thrive, do they have ideas for, like how there's engraved bricks or different things that they think would complement their design, but that we could also use as part of our fundraising conversation?
Yeah, that's going to have to be one of the first things we discuss, is the recognition piece for donors. And I'm sure that they do have some ideas.
I think the final design should come back here before we send it along.
I 100% agree with that.
Do you have an objection to that?
No.
Do you need a motion or anything?
If that's the consensus of the commission, we can reconvene and do that, as long as it's the consensus.
Does anyone else have thoughts on that? I think it should come back here.
I agree. I think it should come back here as well.
Agreed.
I'd like to make a motion to ask Jennifer to bring the plan back here before it goes on to the park board and elsewhere.
I second that.
Okay, that will probably be a couple months. We're estimating towards the end of the year, so.
Okay. At this point, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
May I say something before we adjourn?
Yes.
For the fundraising, I just wanted to highlight it out that I know there have been multiple, for example, nonprofits created, especially with the Sparks family. I have created one. So just an idea for that too, and different programs and organizations and groups that have done that. So maybe just to keep that a thought in the back of your head is to kind of keep it close to home, and things like that with all the organizations that have come out of it for fundraising purposes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion? We have a motion.
I move to approve, move to adjourn.
Second? I need
I second.
Okay. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.